Today we're going to be talking about my top 10 tools every crafter needs. Stay tuned. Greetings adventurers and welcome to Skill Tree, where we learn how to do just about everything. So as you voyage along on your crafting journey through life, you're going to accumulate just an ungodly amount of tools. But of the literal hundreds of tools that I have just kind of squirreled away in this place, there's probably around 10 that I use for almost every single project. Whether it's leather, woodworking, metal craft, these things always tend to find their way into my kit. You're going to be really familiar with most of them, but make sure you stay to the last one, because it honestly shocked me with how useful this thing is, and it's kind of weird. Before I get going though, if this isn't your first time watching my videos, can you do me a favor and hit that subscribe button? My analytics show me that there's actually a really large percentage of you that watch me often, but still haven't subscribed yet, so that would really help out a lot. All right, let's jump into it and look at these tools. Really quick, these are in no particular order, although the one that I'm gonna show you last is definitely my MVP. So this would be number one, but yeah. And my starter is just a utility knife, like a really good utility knife. Now I've used a lot of different ones, and honestly I have a lot of different ones, but I always come back to these kind of sturdy metal, I think the Stanley ones here. I've had this since I used to do construction. In fact, it has like a ribbed surface here that we used to use to like straighten out drywall edges. But yeah, of all the ones I used, this is the one that I'm just the most comfortable with. It's like heavy and sturdy in hand. I feel like I can control it really well. And although I do like those blades that have like a long blade and you can just kind of break it off as it dulls, I just don't feel like they're sturdy enough for me. That blade just feels a little weak, and it feels like it bends as I try to move around and like edge things with it. These bad boys are cheap. It's super easy to replace blades. There's a little compartment here to store extra blades. And that's really huge because, as I say quite often on the show, a dull blade is a super dangerous blade. Somebody in my comment section said it really well the last time I brought it up. It's easier to get cut with a sharp blade, but you get cut way worse with a dull blade. That's because you're trying to fight through a thing with a dull blade, and then it slips, and that's when it gets you with a lot more force. So yeah, 100%. This thing is the best. I love this thing. The second one I have down on this list is just a Ball-Peen Hammer. Specifically this kind of smaller one. I have a couple of them, but I don't know how many ounces this is, but I love this little hammer. Now a hammer is another tool where each one is very much purpose-built for what it's for. Even just like claw hammers alone, you can get into like a framing hammer, which is larger. You can get into like a finish hammer, which is smaller and for those detailed work. Dead blow hammers, mallets, there's so many different varieties, and I have most of them, but honestly, man, I always go back to this little guy. I've used this on everything from woodworking to actually like forging, right? When I'm doing really small detail work, I turn to this thing. Because it's small and easy to like clamp down, I've actually used it in leather working as almost an anvil. Specifically for those times where I have like a tube of leather and I'm trying to set something, I can drive this all the way in and then use that as an anvil to set my rivets. I've even used the peen here for like shaping in clay when I want to have that kind of domed thing. It's just so versatile for me. I love this thing. Caveat though, and this is going to go with everything on this list, this is very much my personal list. You're going to have different tools you go to all of the time, but these things are just like every single time I reach for them. And hammers are a great example of this. Because I do a lot of that fine finish kind of work, this little guy is really all I need for the most part. But were I framing up a house and that's what I did a lot, or doing really large projects, this really wouldn't cut the bill. I'd really want like a framing hammer or something with a lot more mass. All that to say, there is no one perfect tool for every job, but there are some really good multitaskers out there, and that's kind of what I'm pointing out here today. My next one is very much going to go along with my razor in that I use it for literally every single project I do, no matter what the medium is. And that is a steel ruler. Man, it took me a long time to get on the steel ruler game. I had plastic ones forever. I have a boatload of like wooden ones with kind of a steel edge to it. But a steel ruler is just so clutch. One of the best things about it is when you're using it in conjunction with your razor knife is it doesn't cut into it as you go. I found with a plastic ruler and very much with a wooden ruler, if you have a nice sharp blade, it actually starts to dig into that plastic or wood and will chip it out, and that becomes useless, right? You need a straight edge. That, not a problem with a metal ruler. I use this thing for everything. I use it to fold straight edges on paper, obviously to mark things. I use it to square stuff. I almost added a square to this list, but then I realized I actually don't use a square very often. I use this. I make a straight edge on one side because I never trust factory straight edges. And then I just measure off of that edge that I know is straight and use this to make sure everything else is straight in relation to that. And the little hole here that I use to like hang it up on my wall is exactly 1/4 of an inch away from the top, or at least the top marking there, which I'll get into that in just one second. But because of that, I know that if I stick a pin or a nail right there, I can then measure out using the measurements and use this as a compass to draw a perfect large circle, because it's gonna be perfect, right? If you're creative enough, there really isn't a lot that a good straight edge can't get done. But my one problem with this particular one, and I do have other ones that don't have this problem, is that the actual measurements start about 1/8 of an inch away from the top. That's not terrible, it's just a thing you have to remember all the time, and I constantly forget. The reason that's not terrible is this little end can get hit a lot. It'll be right on the corner and that'll get dinged. So you won't actually be able to go to that mark most times with an older ruler anyways. By moving it away from those ends, it actually extends the life of your ruler and extends the usefulness of your ruler. It's just a thing to remember, because I always forget about it. It drives me crazy. All right, next on our list, moving on from the ruler, we're going for the awl. These are, again, tools that are just every single thing I do. Obviously, in like leather crafting, I use them to punch holes or to make marks. Anytime you're doing anything with stitching, you're gonna need an awl, or it's great to have an awl. In woodworking, going to your wood first and getting a little dimple in there so that your nails will sit in exactly where you want them to go, or your screw will sit in exactly where you want them to go instead of it like dancing around on you. Perfect for an awl. Heck, even when I'm working with metal, awls are great because they'll scratch onto the surface without permanently marring the thing, so I can mark up a piece pretty lightly and then use those marks to do whatever I want to do, sharpen it up, bend it, whatever. I use it in clay for really small detail artwork like feathers or anything, and the same with like foam. If I make little marks with foam and then I hit it with a hair dryer, those marks then open up for me a little bit. I won't beat this thing up, just get some awls, they're fantastic. I definitely recommend getting kind of multiple sizes, some that are chunkier and can take a beating, and some small ones like this that are great for detailed work. Super simple tools, never let you down. Love a good awl. Now there's one tool that would be on this list if we were talking about just what somebody who's like making a living out of crafting should have. And that tool is a website. There really is no better tool to get people to notice your business. Thankfully, today's sponsor, porkbun.com's got you covered. Porkbun was named the #1 domain registrar by USA Today 3 years running from 2003 to 2025. And it's here to help you carve out your own little crafty piece of the internet with a .pro domain. Get it? Because then it shows that you're a pro. But that designation actually matters. If somebody is looking for a pro leather crafter, metal worker, whatever it is that you do, having that domain is going to help give that kind of official feeling to it. It's perfect for freelancers, creators, small business owners, anybody who wants to make a living out of their passion. And the best part is Porkbun makes it really easy. Every domain comes with a bunch of free goodies like Whois Privacy, SSL certificate, email hosting trials, and a bunch more. No hidden fees, none of that crap, just what you need to get up and running. Now, if you're interested, you're in luck. By using our link, you can get your .pro domain for $1 for a whole year. Just head to porkbun.com/skilltree. That's porkbun.com/skilltree to get that $1 pro domain for a year and turn your passion into a profession. Okay, so number 5 on this list that isn't in any particular order. Man, I just can't live without clamps. I do not have enough hands, and these make up the difference. I especially have come to love these big old wooden clamps here. First and foremost, because I work with a lot of delicate things, and these are not marring. They tend to not like ding up a surface you're using it on or whatever. But I really love the amount of surface area that's in these, so I can hold stuff down very, very strongly using just this one clamp if I have to. But once you've learned how like the 2 little screws here work, you can also be super fine with it. Like if I just do this front one here, just the very tip has come together and is clamping right there. And using both of them in concert really tightens that down right there now. Or you can just kind of take it, evenly close it up, and now you've got this entire area here that is holding down all at once. Which again, with that much surface area, it really helps to hold some stuff, but also it spreads that force out so we're not just digging in and maybe marring something up. But just like with the hammer, there are as many clamps as there are jobs that need clamps. There are fun little corner clamps that hold like mitered edges together. There's really wide C-clamps to like get around like the surface of a table or the surface of something you're holding to make sure that all the force is right in the middle. little tiny, little quick release clamps, right? For a fast grab on something. Though I have to say I have yet to find a good quick release clamp. They all always break once they get to the point where they're as tight as I want to. Maybe I just over tighten things. But I feel like that's a clamp's job. It should be to be very tight. I would say that if you're on a budget, I would just go out and get a big old pack of spring clamps. They're not gonna hold as strong or as precise as some other clamps, but like they're usually very cheap and they're usually pretty damn strong. And aside from this thing, those are my fast go-to when I just need an extra pair of hands to hold something together while I do something else. Regardless though, clamps are the shit. Definitely get yourself some clamps. Okay, so now we're gonna be moving to our first power tool of the mix here, and that is a cordless drill. Again, one of the most versatile tools I have, bar none. Especially if you're creative with this thing. You can get it to do a lot of stuff. Obviously, almost everything that needs a hole, this is the guy I go to. Wood, metal, plastic, you name it, I'm using this for everything. And because of the versatility that comes with like actual drill bits, you can get holes of a whole bunch of different sizes, right? Big hole saw bits all the way down to really, really small kind of pin bits that go through. Super, super long drill bits. Of course, driving screws, fasteners, anything like that. But again, being creative, I've used this drill in the past as like the thing that spins so I can wind up wire that I can then cut to be chainmail. Or like one time I took a tennis ball that I had wrapped in sandpaper and I mounted on a piece of metal that I put into this because that gave me like a nice rounded thing that I can use to get into the bottom of a cup that I was making to like sand it out nice and round. Same within leather crafting. I've stuck my burnishing tool right into this thing so I could burnish the edges and get that faster. There really is just a million uses for a good drill. Now I like these kind of more all-around basic drills because I do use it for stuff like that, but again, it's another one of those tools where there's a lot of different styles of drill depending on what you're doing. Everything from impact drills to really kind of big chunky ones for when you're doing electrical work and you got to go through a bunch of studs. Depending on the flavor of work you do, you're probably going to have a drill that matches that. But I think most everybody can get by, especially with home projects and craft projects, with just a really nice basic cordless drill. Now that was number 6 on our list. I'm gonna put a little asterisk for a 6.5 here. It's really hard to decide which ones. But almost as much as I use this, I use my Dremel. I have a Dremel by Dremel, and I genuinely love this tool. It was such a toss-up between these. But the reason why I chose this over this is because everything I do with this, I kind of can do either with this or with something else I have on this list. So with like sanding, there's something we'll get into a little bit later on with sanding. I use this so much for sanding. Do I have to? No, it's the most convenient thing for sure. But in general, man, these are so close together. This lacks the torque this has though. So this is more versatile where I can have like, drill really large holes or I can drive screws. This can't do that. But this is way faster. So that speed is fantastic when we're trying to remove some really like delicate stuff. When you pair it with something like these carbide bits, you can do, man, just about everything with it. This thing just chews through material. I've used it to shape bone. I've used it to like cut some small holes in leather. I've even done entire like wood whittling projects. Not whittling because I'm using this, but like it did everything I needed it to do. It's fantastic. But like as a crafter, this is a need to have for me. This is just a damn good to have, like so good. Yeah, it belongs on the list, but I'm just gonna keep these together. It's my way of cheating. What does absolutely belong on this list though, 100%, is just a pair of pliers. Me specifically, it's these kind of angled needle nose pliers here. I use it for absolutely everything. But just like with a lot of tools, it depends on the jobs you're doing. Because I am doing such fine kind of fiddly work, usually working with like wires or rings with this is perfect for me. But if I was using a lot of like big nuts and bolts or anything like that, I'd probably want different pliers than this. But aside from its stated use, I use it for a whole bunch of other stuff. Like in this past project when I was doing a horn and I had to anneal the metal, I hold on to this because the metal's gonna get hot, and then I use this to hold the metal while I heat it up. I've used this in leather crafting when my hands get too like tired and sore after doing a lot of sewing to push the needle through like a lot of leather. This is my go-to. I just grab the end of that needle and it helps me drive it through so I don't have to deal with it. In fact, sometimes I'm using 2 of them. So I'm driving with one, grabbing it with the other, and pulling it the rest of the way through if the leather really wants to fight me. God, I hate hand stitching. And especially these ones with the little spring loaded, so they just open up automatically, so I can just kind of close my hand and know they're gonna open for me. It's a real simple one, but man, get yourself a good pair of pliers that you're comfortable with. You will not regret that purchase. All right, we're getting down to it. The next one's kind of a big boy, but again, electric tool, my belt sander. Now, I believe this guy is a Harbor Freight special, not at all expensive, but I use it constantly. In fact, it for sure has seen better days, and this plate no longer likes to sit straight. I gotta fix that, or just get a new one, I guess. It's been years. But exactly that. I abused the hell out of this thing because it was so cheap, and I'm like, whatever, if it breaks. It just hasn't. It just keeps going. If you look in the video where I made my own straight razor, which I still use to this very day, this is what I used to sharpen it. Basically, anytime you've seen me shaping wood or shaping bone or whatever, this is the belt sander that you are seeing. It has this really nice straight run here with part of it that is supported with metal so I can get a very kind of straight edge. But then this area here allows for some give, which really helps me like softly round things off a little bit. And then of course, this bend around the top makes perfect little arcs in things. There is so many things that I've made on this channel I made with this guy here. Heck, I have random stuff behind me, and like the sheath here was shaped with this thing. I cleaned up the wood of my crazy little buckler here with this same thing to make sure the edges were round. Heck, when I went to make this video, it wasn't even put away because I was using it to mod one of my game controllers. Like, I need to cut out a little piece, and the width of this was just perfect. You don't need to break the bank with these things. This bad boy has been a workhorse, and I love it so much. I think between this and the cordless drill, those are the only power tools on this list, but I honestly, man, I couldn't get away with not showing them off. I kind of can't live without them. I love them. Though I gotta do a better job keeping this one clean. So much random dust. Literally random. There's definitely a little bit of plastic and wood and whatever inside of here. Probably not good for me at all. All right, down to the final two, and the next one kind of surprised me as I was going through it, but it just never leaves my table, and that is a compass. You can also sub this out with a wing divider, but I went with a compass instead because it not only can make those like straight line marks, but it's really great at drawing circles. Obviously, it's a compass. But do not underestimate how incredibly powerful this little tool is. So just like a wing divider, it can be used to like mark a straight edge because it's gonna follow along that edge and draw that line. Not only that, but if you adjust the width to exactly how wide you want it, you can then walk it along and use it to measure out that length as you go. And then of course there's drawing circles. But geometry is so very interesting. For some reason I slept through it during school, but since I've been crafting, the amount of cool things you can figure out by just making intersecting circles and whatever, it's just incredible. Really, really complex maths that you would have to do in order to make these things right, this bad boy does easily. I highly recommend you looking up some compass hack or like compass geometry videos at some point if you want to fall into a bit of a well. It's really, really cool. There is a reason why throughout a lot of human history, this has been an essential piece of kit. All right, and for our final tool here, I don't know if it's classified as a tool to me because I do use it as a tool, though it is a little weird. And that is just this random block of steel. It seems weird. It's just a big solid block of steel, heavy as hell. And I originally got it actually at a junkyard because I was trying to make an anvil. So my initial thought was I was actually going to like seat this into a tree stump and then use this as the anvil, right? But then during that same expedition, I found a piece of railroad track that I used to make my actual anvil. But I couldn't put it down, so I brought it. And since then, I use this thing for everything. Like I said, it is heavy, so it is fantastic when I have like 2 glued pieces and I need to apply weight. This is perfect for that. In leather crafting, a lot of times I'm saying like, use the recommended anvil and striker. I'm not using the recommended anvil, I'm using this just because it's perfect, it works great. Not awesome for like rounded things because it'll flatten them, but otherwise, this thing is so solid. Because it is like heavy and very massive, when I do things like trying to set rivets, it has the weight to take that. It has an almost perfectly flat surface. I don't know what it was in its past life, but I dig it. It's about time for me to change it up though and to flatten it myself. It's because I've been putting some dings in here. But in those flat areas, if I want to tool leather, this can take the place of my marble if I don't feel like moving stuff off of my marble. Because it is so solid and massive, it's really fantastic for when I'm leather crafting as well, and I'm trying to get images in there like I'm tooling the leather. This surface is great for that. Heck, this thing is even featured in a lot of my thumbnail shots, though you wouldn't know it, but is a perfect size for me to do things like, you know, if I wanted to take a picture of this, I just kind of balance this up so I could take a picture of it. It's heavy enough that it doesn't tip over, but I can lean stuff against it. I can change what side I'm using it on. Even just throw my hammer underneath it, so now it's just kind of at a slope so I can have that kind of angle too. I don't know, man. I didn't realize this would be the most versatile tool in my shop, but it really is. There isn't a single project that goes by that I don't find some sort of a use for a flat, heavy block. Okay, so there you have it. That is my top 10 list of tools that I use every day. Though, I really want to see what your list is. Are there tools that we share on our list? Are there things that you find you use all the time that I didn't even think of? This is gonna sound really rainbows and skittlies, but like, as crafters, we're all very unique, right? We're all artists in our own right, and I think the tools that we use constantly reflect that. Like you'll notice, most of my tools are so that I can do really detailed, precise finish work. Because a lot of the stuff I do have a lot of detail in it, and I try to be as precise as possible. Coupled with the fact that sometimes I just need smash. This area of the table here is after my patience with all of this crap has waned. And now I got hammer, and there's gonna be hole. Now I know this is a little bit different. I wasn't making a thing, but I really kind of like doing this, and I'm interested to see if you guys liked it too. But I only want to do that if you find it worth it. So you let me know if you like this type of stuff. In the meantime though, keep leveling up, you. You made it to the end screen. YouTube loves it when you do that. It's a fantastic way to support this channel. Another fantastic way to support this channel is by joining these people's noble ranks. These are our Patreon members, and we can't do this without them. Massive shout out to our newest high tier Patreon member. They just left a period. But we thank them anyways, fantastic. And of course, a giant thank you to our Grandmaster tier Patreon, Dragon Design, Wild Fox 99, Froggy, and Just a Guy from the Southwest. Again, y'all are the lifeblood of this. I really, really appreciate that you like us enough that you want to support us. It genuinely means the world to me. If you like what we do here and find you want to support us, consider joining our Patreon, link in the description below. Otherwise, you can just click on one of these videos that YouTube thinks you'd like, and that honestly helps a lot too. Okay, now I